They start here in Moscow by the Bolshoi Theatre. They'll ride 9,200 kilometers across the whole of Russia. No one is forcing you to do anything. It's all about exploring yourself, discovering your limitations.
I skip because it's to pain my feet, heads and hands.
Fuck! Thank you for the hardest day in my life.
This is the longest stage of the race. The bikers will have to cover nearly 2,000 kilometers in just 2 days. It's been 24 hours already.
In this sport, we never know what can be arrived.
I kept falling asleep as I rode. I was afraid of falling off. A reasonably healthy person can ride a bike around 100 kilometers, 300 kilometers if you're well prepared. But what about 1,400? And yet this is precisely the length of the Red Bull Trans-Siberian Extreme's longest stage. It takes 9 hours to get from Moscow to Vladivostok by plane and a week if you go by train. All the Red Bull Trans-Siberian Extreme participants have is a bike and 23 days. The total distance of 9,200 kilometers is broken into 14 stages, and this is the longest and the toughest race you can find around the globe. It's important to understand quite clearly what you're getting yourself into and to be prepared for the consequences. Last year, only 2 competitors were able to go the entire route from start to finish: Christophe Allegard and Steve Harvey. Edouard Fuchs stood a really good chance, but he had to withdraw from one stage. This year, he returned to finish the job. In total, 10 athletes crossed the starting line of the Red Bull Trans-Siberian Extreme 2016. They hailed from Austria, France, Germany, Thailand, Brazil, and Russia. The race will have solo and duo participants. The solo riders will have to traverse the entire route from Moscow to Vladivostok, while those participating in a duo will divide the distance between the two of them, alternating with one another. This year's oldest participant is Pascal Piche. He's 52 but looks 40. A former Special Forces officer, a triathlete with 9 world records, he began training not long before the start of the race.
He's one of the best experts in France. He has several records running and cycling.
I have ride for more than 10,000 kilometers from January to now. It's correct, I think. Some guys for Tour de France have not the same kilometers, but I think it was a good preparation. A few months ago in Paris, he stayed 6 days long on a home trainer and ride about around 2,800 kilometers for us, for the association. I think it's not a problem of kilometers. The body, if you prepare it, can do what you want.
When we were just starting in Moscow, I thought that the beginning of the race would be quiet, with the first stage being somewhat restrained. There was no hurry, what with 9,000 kilometers ahead, right? It takes getting the hang of it, and the foreign participants require acclimatization. The race policy allows riding in a peloton, and we're all moving in a pack, But no one could have predicted that the wind would be right behind us, and Andy decided to ride everyone down, literally, from the very start. Andreas Fuchs is a professional triathlete and multiple Austrian championship winner.
Очень сильно.
He's very strong. Back in 2014, he took part in the Red Bull Trans-Siberian Extreme race in a duo with Anatoly Nesterov. He did it in just 2 weeks. Maybe he thought he could do it at the same pace on his own. Whatever the case, he and Prim sped up the peloton, and everyone was riding like there was no tomorrow.
It was a little idea for me to begin very hard in the beginning, so I hope that everybody gets tired when we come to the long stages. But I don't know Alexei, he was the very unknown in the beginning.
I was a bit shocked by this pace on the first day.
I think that day it makes everything more difficult. You need many skills to survive on the road because the terrain of Russian road is like toughest in my life.
Towards the end of stage 1, the highly experienced Eddie Fuchs got the hang of it and came first, while Andreas and I, we missed a turn. During the second and the third stage, Andy would again ramp up the pace at the beginning.
I think we have a good mix between fighting and share the road.
I think Andy can win this race. He can give 120%, but when he's not happy with his job, so he goes down.
I don't know how long we are racing. It feels like racing more than a year. Every time we look, face, now it's time to make a break. So we stopped to take a pee-pee break. It was a friendship, but it was no present in the end.
Very emotional person. Yeah?
And I say to Alex, thank you for the hardest day in my life.
I think the first day they were really impressive to me because when you looked at the solo riders, they were riding like there's no tomorrow. To me it was kind of a logical consequence of this style of riding that it will only end in this moment, that some riders' bodies cannot do it anymore.
At a petrol station, he's made a stop. His legs ache.
First stage, it's almost 24-25 hours for 600k. I did just only 330s in total, and I skipped because it's too pain.
Fourth stage, we ride very moderate.
This race doesn't spare anyone. You're always at risk of making a load of mistakes and not having enough time to rectify them. And that would be the end of it. Any minor detail may turn into a stumbling block within minutes. One needs to be very quick here because the problem is not going to just go away by itself. Like Pascal, for example. He's got a severely chafed perineum now, and that's an experienced man with so much knowledge, but he decided that one bike would be enough for the entire race. The bike really is smashing, but if it gets broken, there'll be no way to replace it. The fixed carbon seat post doesn't let you adjust the saddle height, and now he's got the result of this on his hands. Well, sorry, on his bum.
считаю, что человеку просто не...
I think the saddle wasn't chosen properly, that's all. It was too narrow, it didn't fit his body, the structure of his pelvis.
I have lost some part of skin, and it's very difficult to sit on the saddle. The doctor say that it's not possible to continue with this big problem. I have lost the motivation. It's like an explosion, and some advice to people to come without problem. It will be do your preparation, your sponsor, minimum 8 months before. I think in February all must be ready. You have just to wait, to train, and to put your ass in the plane at the last moment.
Vin and Andy also ignored the signals their bodies were sending. They didn't adjust their saddles, and the price was an excruciating pain in their knees and ligaments.
Я наблюдал за гонщиками.
I was watching the races. Some had the saddle set too high, others had it low. Some had to stretch to reach the bars, and you could see how they got tired so quickly. My guess is that Andreas Fuchs had damaged his ligaments because of that high saddle.
I tried to sprint with Alexei, and I saw no chance to do it with my knee.
After the start, I noticed my knee make too much problems. It hurts just when we easy out of the city. So I make the decision. It's too far to the finish line from the stage, but also very, very far to the finish line to Vladivostok. The rule said I can start every stage from new in other ranking. But I like racing in front. I want to match and fight with the best. And Siberian is absolutely craziest and best rider I ever know personally.
The shoes are great, but long distances are tough. Today we've adjusted my sandals a bit. They're really cool now, aren't they? So my feet almost didn't ache at all, and I was feeling great. Well, on the whole, the guys seem to be shocked by the fact that I've caught up with Fuchs, but I had it all well thought out, all planned. I stopped after I'd done 130 kilometers, when I was at a dead end, so to speak. The plan was to make a test stopover to check how much sleep will be required during the following stages. I'd reckoned that since I had gained 45 minutes against Fuchs during the previous 5th stage, I could then spend those 40 minutes on sleeping and then start off. I'd basically still have a chance of catching up, because he hadn't had any sleep.
I did not sleep this stage because we drive only one night, and one night is no problem with sleep. The finish was very dramatically for me. 114 kilometers before I ride solo on the first place, and before finish Alexei come from behind, and we have on the last meter a very hot sprint.
This is how my goal was accomplished. I found out how much sleep I would need during the following stages. Alexei Siberian is very clever, resourceful, and he's got this way about him. And it's his head rather than his legs that he's got to thank for his victories.
When you ride and you see every day he's a little bit faster and every day he's a little bit cleverer. So then it's not easy for every man or woman or everybody, yeah, to do this.
I don't know if it's possible to beat him. He's really, really strong and also a nice guy. But I said he's a wise fox, but sometimes he is not true at all. You can't believe everything what he's saying. He's talking a lot on the bike. It's good for me, so I like to conversation with him on the bike, but he's telling you things you better not believe. And you never know what he's really thinking.
I think riding without sufficient sleep is dangerous. If you feel like you can't shake off your drowsiness, you'd better stop to avoid a possible fall. There were a few falls last year, and this time I didn't really want to run that risk again. After just 1 hour of sleep, you regain your ability to concentrate and you can carry on like before. Fuchs has a different strategy. He prefers to stay awake all through the stage, finish it, and only once it's over he goes to rest. That's proved bad for his speed though, even when the wind is favourable. Had Fuchs been with a duo rather than alone, catching up with him would have been impossible. But they were far ahead and I didn't want to miss the food point. I don't know, maybe nobody had told Fuchs the food was great there. After a rest, I managed to catch up and overtake him. This is important in races like this. It's not just about riding fast and using your head. It's also about sleeping enough and eating well. Because if you don't do that, your body will start starving. And it's like riding with your tyres punctured.
Full day starts with a breakfast quite early in the morning. That means we're having breakfast at 6. We get up at 3, start cooking at 4, providing for the breakfast. We're trying to start before the races so we're not getting stuck in the traffic jam. We have to be quite quick. Going to the next stop, around 250 kilometers usually. From there immediately start cooking lunch. And that's how it happens the whole day until the night, depending on the length of the leg. It might be that we're on the road 2 or 3 days even and cooking basically non-stop. Always have to make sure that you get the right amount of proteins, that you have really fresh vegetables because they need these vitamins. Their bodies are obviously burning everything they have during this kind of trips. It was a pretty cool one because again it was in the middle of nowhere, close to the Trans-Siberian Railway, a very small village. And we were cooking, getting everything ready, having a buffet style, how we do it set up. It's a cow coming out of nowhere and was really curious. Wanted to join us on the buffet, obviously, which we didn't like too much. Not that we have a problem with cows, but we don't really need cows close to the food. So everyone was quite busy keeping the cow away and entertaining her a little bit. It was really a cool story. Something you only once experienced like this, I guess.
I think if only one of us would have had the possibility to do this downhill, probably we would have to fight each other. My computer said I was going like 97 kilometers per hour, which is quite really fast on a bicycle. After some time, I realized that the other guy from the other duo team, he was just away. And I was really surprised as another guy from a solo starter just overtook.
When I saw that the Germans had decided to ride through the mountains together, it became clear that they wanted to pull ahead. Just before the final winding road approaching Baikal, we got stuck in a traffic jam. This was one of the most extreme moments in the race. Dodging traffic at speeds like that is extremely dangerous. A big thanks to the traffic police who arrived on time and helped us to break through. Luckily, there were no accidents, but that was part of what made this such an extreme race.
Marcelo from Brazil is the good cyclist, I think. He can keep to fight all the way with the pros. I mean, he's super fighter.
Никто так не страдал, как Марсело.
No one was in as much pain as Marcelo. At every stage, all he could do was stay with the pack for a couple of 100 kilometers, and then he'd fall back and ride alone. He braved the wind, the impassable roads, the hellish pain all on his own, and always finished late. But he wouldn't give up. He'd find the strength to crawl to bed, and the next day he'd be as fresh as a daisy and ready for another start. It was amazing. God knows how painful and hard it was for him.
He talked nothing during his ride, he's just fighting. He's unbelievable. After the first stage, everybody thought the guy will leave us soon.
Em 2015,
In 2015, I broke the Brazilian national record when I crossed the country on a bike, and I was determined to keep on doing long-distance races. In 2016, I found out about the Red Bull Trans-Siberian
no
Extreme.
começo do ano eu vi que abriram as inscrições do Trans-Siberian.
I was among the first to sign up for the race. I didn't have a cent. I enrolled okay, but I had no resources. I only got them at the last moment. I managed to buy a ticket with minutes to spare. I nearly didn't make it here.
Faltando dia.
He seems like a cheerful, open-hearted person, but his life has been hard.
Не так уж и просто. Единственное,
The only man who could understand Marcelo was his assistant, Sergio. A virtually unknown biker arrived in Moscow with an old helmet, a tattered pair of biking shoes, and a bike that was so bad that the Moscow organizers gave him a new one while his was being revived by the mechanics.
seeing in him that he must do this. I don't know for what or for who he will do this. Maybe he see his only chance to survive to do this race, but he must be a really good reason to do this. Maybe he has normal pain, but there must be so much pain inside Marcelo that it is too much, I think.
Eu chorei, eu sofri,
I cried, I laughed, and I loved.
muito feliz por ter.
Однажды он не дошел до номера нашего.
Once he couldn't get to the room where we did physio. He collapsed in the corridor. It was in Krasnoyarsk. We had to carry him to the massage table and do all the procedures there. And then we carried him back to his room.
Под руки отнесли его обратно в его номер.
Старый велосипед Марсело дал знать о себе.
Marcelo's old bike threw in the towel. Several stages in, the tube burst. It was just too old. And then at one stage, the chain broke. We had to replace the cables, housings and shifters on his bike because it was all rusted up. I believe his bike will last to the finish.
Я думаю, что велик все-таки доедет.
He's totally focused on his goals,
На достижение своей мечты.
including being the first Brazilian to finish the world's longest race.
O carinho das pessoas da prova me deixava como rei.
The people in this race made me feel like royalty. I didn't want to disappoint them. That's why I couldn't give up. So many people cheering me. That gave me strength.
Dava uma força, isso que me dava uma força.
rain all day and all night. It's really like torture. It's hell. I'm really scared of the night. When it's raining again, shit. I can go in car every hour and warm up. When you do it solo, I think you get ill after this. But it was chance for Eddie to win. It was chance for Marcelo to win. That would be really funny.
Чита свободный. Самый длинный этап.
Chita Svobodny, the longest stage, proved the toughest. Not just because it was 1,370 kilometers. All the possible negative factors came together here. Mountains and rain and crosswinds would be okay alone, but together they were a brutal cocktail.
Такое.
Few can cope with that. That was the hell we had on the first day, right from the start. The temperature fell at night. We felt terrible, shivering. Eddie, Marcelo and I stopped to eat, to get dry clothes on and have a 1.5 hour sleep. We hoped the rain and wind would stop, but we had to carry on in that awful weather. That meant low speeds, also because of the terrain. Riding uphill, you overheat in your rain gear. And downhill, the wind chill freezes you to the bone. The rain only got worse at dawn, and we all began to feel really bad.
Ты потеешь, вниз тебя продувает. Опять в горку потеешь, вниз продувает. Либо просто реально ползти, как мы ползли.
When we stopped to the food point, we finally checked our chains. All three bikers had their chains in tatters. Water and sand had washed the lube out, and that had basically destroyed them. When we started to change the chains, we found out that Marcelo's brakes had already worn down too. We had our bikes repaired, we changed into dry clothes and carried on, hoping that conditions would improve. But they didn't. At the beginning of the race, we were averaging over 40 kilometers per hour. Now we were barely managing 17. We did our calculations and saw we'd finish this stage with just 1 hour before the start of the next one. Today was a tough stage, 28 hours of torrential rain and high winds. The temperature fell to as low as +8 Celsius at night. The racers are utterly exhausted with extreme fatigue. They all wanted medical assistance. We had to examine them. After consultations with other doctors, we ruled that the racers are free to opt out of the stage. Their condition is stable, but some are experiencing severe overexertion and hypothermia, and they could get serious respiratory conditions.
Die Schwierigkeit, abgesehen vom Wetter.
The weather was so bad today that we couldn't keep up the previous pace. It was really tough. It became clear that if anyone drops out, I'd have to carry on alone because no one else could set the pace. I've worked out that alone, I can't cover the distance in the allotted time.
Die komplette Strecke in der vorgegebenen Zeit zu schaffen.
I don't see any choice for them than to quit this stage and to quit it quite early, because if they continue riding, they do it for nothing.
I have no regrets. There was simply no other way. If I get the chance to race next year, I'll try myself on this road once again, but with more comprehensive prep and better gear. And rain or snow or dinosaurs roaming the roads, I'll make it. This is an interesting point in the race. According to the general major classification, we have no bike racers left who have completed all the stages, unfortunately. Yes, we've been warned about the consequences. There will be no winner in the race, but health and safety are important too. We have 2 duos left in the race who have been in it from the beginning to the end. We need them to finish, but the situation is what it is. Even if this stage wasn't 1,400 kilometers and it was just 140 kilometers, it'd still be the hardest. I'm barely breathing. We tried to get a 3.5-hour sleep. It didn't work. For me or for Misha.
Ни у меня, ни у Миши. У нас не было хороших.
We lacked proper sleeping berths. We thought half of the back seat would be enough for a good sleep.
Однако в процессе
It wasn't, so we didn't get much decent sleep because of the accommodation or the stress of the race.
гонщик мог поспать несколько часов.
Alina was part of Thomas and Johannes' team at the Trans-Siberian Extreme in 2015.
I'm a physiotherapist. Basically, my job was to take care of the cyclists.
She brought lots of experience with her, which helped us in very many different ways, especially to get started into this race, because she knew how to do changes, she knew how the cars have to be looking like inside, that it's necessary we have enough space in the bag just to lie down and also to get treatment by her.
Yeah, it looks like a sleeping place for a dog, but it's really comfortable.
As we realized that all the solo riders, they just gave up, we're talking about if maybe the Russian duo will quit the stage too. So let's wait until they decide to quit, and then we can quit too. Then it was Alina who said, "You're not quitting anyway, you cannot do this." She's like the best example for a team member, which is not only like a supporter, but with whom you win a race.
When you're riding over 12 hours non-stop, the fatigue is mental and physical. Your brain will inevitably decide it's time to start saving your body, and it just keeps on hammering away. Do you really need this? Stop. When your inner motivation runs out, you need support from outside, from the team. If you have someone who can relieve everyone's stress, the team is great.
Команда отличная.
But you have to motivate people and put up with them too. So I invited in the sports doctor and physio, Eduard Safin, who I've known since Katyusha. He'd literally piece me together and breathe life into me after each stage. He would monitor my psychological condition, he'd motivate me, encourage and inspire me to carry on. Kostya Anuchin, the mechanic, did really well. He knew when to take the initiative. It's really important for your team to keep in a competitive mood. Every single corner of Russia has its own flavor, its unique beauty, its individuality. Russia is stunningly beautiful, incredibly diverse, totally amazing, and staggeringly huge. It's got endless lakes, rivers, fields, people selling stuff on the sides of the road, fish, honey, berries, mushrooms, veggies. Anything the locals can catch or grow along the country's biggest traffic artery. The 9,000 kilometers are definitely going to be anything but boring. The route passes through 19 subjects of the Russian Federation, 5 climactic zones and 8 time zones. The total altitude difference between different levels along this race is 18,000 meters. You can't describe this. You have to experience it for yourself.
Red Bull Trans-Siberian.
The Red Bull Trans-Siberian Extreme is the craziest competition I've taken part in.
Aqueles caminhões gigantes passando na nossa orelha.
Those huge trucks with huge wheels zooming past, scarily near. Endless roads, a gazillion potholes. It was a torment for my body. It's a miracle I stayed in the saddle. Those chilling morning mists. It's the craziest thing that can happen on this planet. It's insane.
This race, that's not just a race, that is the biggest war of all of the sports what we have in the world. So we have the Tour de France, we have Ironman, but this, when you go from Moscow to Vladivostok, it's another universum.
Very specially, you come to this hill and you have no pain. You forget all what was in the last 3 weeks. It's beautiful.
I don't really get that it's over. I'm not here, I would say. I know that it was 3 weeks, but I don't get the time anymore. What day it is, it's only tired. Tomorrow we don't have to ride again.
My feeling after the finish was, hooray, we've done it. I'd sworn to myself that if I can just make it to Vladivostok, I will kiss this Mother Earth 10 times over. Marcelo has demonstrated the most immense, incredible bravery that a man can have. He's nothing less than the hero of this race. Eddie Fuchs has shown his unbreakable spirit and proved himself a worthy competitor. I really loved the race. This opportunity to engage in a tactical struggle and being the best among the solo riders is a very important result for me. The Russian duos braved hell and high water. They would stand up for each other. They've endured it all to get to Vladivostok, and they did it. The German duo was ready for any challenge, whether it was coming from the competitors or from Mother Nature, and their teamwork was exemplary. It was a beautiful and worthy victory. The Red Bull Trans-Siberian Extreme is incredibly tough. This race either makes you or it leaves you completely in tatters. Just think, in the 2 years this race has been held, only 2 participants have gone the distance. For many, this is a worthy challenge.